Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is KidNativeBloodyElbow.com, joined once again by the ineffable, the inevitable, the ineluctable Eugene S. Robinson, author of Fight, everything you ever want to know about getting your ass kicked, but we're
No! Everything
afraid
you want to know about ass kicking, but we're afraid you get your ass kicked for ass kicking. I know you're in
I'm
love with
closing in on it. I'm zeroing in.
You're zeroing in, circling the drain, some would say, but it's a gerund. You know, you would say you
I had
love
an
the
extra
gerund.
gerund. I failed gerunds in 7th grade, which was very unusual as an English.
Also,
student.
closet faggot. Closet
What?
faggot.
What?
That's what. So one of the posters was like he was gonna get me. He called you a cuckold and called me a closet faggot. So I want to get a T-shirt now that says closet faggot.
I see. Well, cuckold, that's
Eugene S. Robinson, closet faggot.
I see. Well, to my knowledge, they're not a cuckold, but
that's what you always say. You got to say, as far as I know.
As far as I know. But I mean, some people are into that.
Hey, you know where I got, how I got over that? A simple argument, a reductio argument. I said, if my partner is not in visual line of sight of me, they're somewhere with a penis inside them. And then once you think about
well expressed,
and then once you think about things along those lines, you just kind of relax.
I see. Then it's all gravy from there.
Yeah, right. Because you can't possibly cover 24 hours a day every second. So you got to make your peace with penis.
We're all trying, We're all trying. Some penises are rowdy and always asking for attention. So, what are you going to do? Anyway, this is not at all where I was planning on taking the show, but that's where Eugene wanted to go.
You were probably just going to start talking about how John Oliver is such a big fan of Eugene S. Robinson and how there are not any other MMA journalists that you can think of who have such a fan base with John Oliver.
Eugene's excited because HBO's John Oliver did a story on Lieback playing North Korea and flashed 1 second of a story you wrote from Ozzy on his screen. So
they say with the headline, if Lieback are fascist, Hitler was a painter.
There you go.
I'd like it known that we got the Nazis in the first 3 minutes. That's fucking bitchin'.
Yeah, and already got the homophobic slurs and the accusations of cuckoldry. So
correct.
There you go.
Thank you. We're like Prince in Purple Rain. One song, and we're done.
In and out. I can't even say that without. Now you see,
in and out. Which I love your segue to PR Deltoid and his passing. We talked about him, and he died. Yes,
indeed. The Clockwork Orange character actor, 89. So had a good long run. But a lot of other things we could talk about, but we are here to talk about UFC on Fox 16, Dillashaw versus Barao 2, and the infamous and patented Care Don't Care preview. Give us a disclaimer, and then we can talk about Stitch Duran and the HBO. Did you see the Real Sports special on domestic violence and MMA?
I did not. I don't have to
fill you in. It was the biggest ass kicking MMA has taken since John McCain called it human cockfighting on 2020 these many years ago. But give us a disclaimer, please.
Care don't care. For all you crybabies, bedwetters, grumblers, work-shy individuals, this has nothing to do with your skills or talents as a fighter, but everything to do with the marketing heft and weight that the UFC has put behind you. So do not take it personally. Fight a good fight. You'll move from don't care to care, and you won't have to deal with the undying indignity and infamy of us having mocked you. So don't take it personally. That is us mocking you, crybabies and bedwetters. Thank you.
We're excellent, except we're not mocking anyone. We're just not caring about them. Key distinction.
Oh no, I'm mocking them.
Well, speak for
no, I'm not mocking anyone. This is all friendly. It means that your company is not behind you. We are the friend of the fighters.
Exactly. Kind of like Stitch Duran was until
friend
he got
of
fired
fighters.
Yesterday.
How do you like that, man? That's not cool. I mean, any Banana Republic dictator who's been deposed could tell you, I probably should have given them some flex room.
Yeah, firing a beloved figure and competent like Stitch Duran has a job. He does it really, really well. People like him. He's accepted in the sport. Fighters rely on him. Fans like him. He pipes up and says, hey, you know, this Reebok deal cost me a lot of money. I lost my sponsorship, and they don't give me anything from the Reebok deal. Boom, he's fired.
Yeah.
That,
yeah, I know you got to stay on message. I understand that, and there's got to be kind of corporate discipline. But on the other hand, man, this smacks of
it's bad PR for the organization.
Yep.
Like, irregardless of how they want to treat their employees, perhaps
you mean regardless.
Independent contractors, yes.
You mean regardless.
None of this grammar niggling, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Stanford West Coast Ivy League elitist. Look, out here in Trump country, we're waving our Confederate flags, and we're saying irregardless.
From the Bronx, baby. He's from the Bronx. I'm sorry. I prefer my heroes uncaptured.
Bold and heroically said, Mr. Trump. That was.
Well, what people haven't figured out is that tonally, Republicans like him because he's unrepentant. You can tell the bellicosity and the unrepentant is that guy sitting in front of the TV with his beer going, "You tell him, Don." Exactly. It doesn't matter what he could say. Man, we're gonna eat poop on Tuesday. You tell him, Don.
Exactly. And they don't care about slandering veterans. That's how they got Bush reelected in 2004. I mean, they built an entire campaign around it. It's kind of late to come out now and say, that's bad, Donald. So neither here nor there. Stitch Duran, fired. Reebok, bad PR. Did you watch Real Sports? You didn't watch Real Sports with Brian Gumbel last night. Devastating segment on domestic violence in MMA. They had the 9/11 audio from Christy Mack being attacked by War Machine. She apparently turned on her cell phone as soon as she could when he came in the house and started attacking Corey Thomas. And the audio is terrifying. Just a woman screaming, no, 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 stop, and constant screaming. They showed.
What was he saying on the video? On the
audio?
You
couldn't really hear anything over her screaming. He wasn't talking. You could hear thudding and impacts and her screaming and saying no. And I didn't get to watch it a second time, so I can't.
That's bad PR. All right.
It's bad PR.
But he is in prison. The system
works,
but
when we get to the bad PR, I'm telling you some of the things they covered. This just sets the emotional tone. Then they show Corey Thomas's smashed face, like the police photos of the guy's face, bloodbath. Like, and the guy's not an MMA fighter. Like, anybody who thinks War Machine was in anything resembling a fair fight with Corey Thomas, dirty website proprietor, is batshit crazy. Like, this is the same War Machine who beat
what website? What website?
I don't know. You tell me. I haven't paid any attention.
All right.
All right. So, and he might have sold Coca-Cola. I can't remember what it was, but he's not a professional trained mixed martial artist. That's my point. How about civilian? We'll call him civilian.
Okay.
And
he's a non-combatant. I got it.
Non-combatant. War Machine beat him into submission, sent him home, then turned on Christy Mack. They show that. They have a cheerful interview with her. She did a great performance. It was all very sympathetic and pretty well handled. Made War Machine look horrible. They showed footage of some of the promo footage that that Bellator did for War Machine. Made Bellator look horrible. They interviewed a ring girl he had dated previously, and she talked about how MMA likes these characters and stuff. Then they talked to
okay. I haven't seen the show, so this might be a little bit premature, but we're still talking about the same guy. That's like saying, well, Hitler.
I know, but they're talking now.
Killed another guy. Then Hitler killed another guy, and then okay, we got that. He killed 6 million people. Okay, you know.
Yeah. But the point of the ring girl that had dated War Machine, she talked about how the promotions like these guys and promote guys like War Machine and like these characters and these outspoken types. Then they talked to Mayhem Miller, who subjects them to an extended interview where he drinks on camera, smokes pot on camera, won't talk to him. Like, they go from day to night in the course of this interview. And then he sits down and is frankly terrifying. He's pretty articulate. It's sort of like a completely unhinged Mike Tyson interview. He's like, I can kill you, 1, 2, 3, martial arts, you know, and like, he's like, look, I'm a weapon. I'm a superhero. I'm trained to kill. And, you know, makes this point vividly. They talk to Relic Gracie, who puts a chokehold on the segment's producer, and the guy is like astonished how he can't remember what happened. He was knocked unconscious, but has no marks on him, you know, is terrified. Relic Gracie talks about how the tone and tenor of the athletes in the sport has changed since it became popular, and now you're seeing a wave of what Gracie describes as 16-year-old thugs who are maybe violent, involved in gangs. They see the UFC as a career path. They say, hey, I can get paid to fight? Great. And then Gracie,
which is bullshit. Which is bullshit because, you know, listen, what function did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu serve in Brazil?
As a martial art for the fascist dictatorship. But that was under control, you see, Eugene. Those are trained professionals that were dragging communists and others.
No, I mean, it's always been a way to codify and control violence. And the audience is self-selecting. You know, what do you think?
But Alec's point was people who are trained in martial arts are extremely dangerous and are dangerous to a degree that people who are not trained in martial arts can never be, which is, I believe, true.
Okay.
And his point was that the UFC and other promotions need to do a better job of filtering out the people that are involved in the sport because of the inherent danger, and you don't want to encourage every goon in the country to become a trained mixed martial artist because the results will be disastrous. And so I've always come from the viewpoint, well, look, if criminal scumbags can't fight in a cage, what can they do? Are we supposed to just exile them from society? And it's a perfectly honorable pursuit, and plenty of people who are not criminal scumbags fight in cages. It's the martial arts, all kinds of people can be martial artists. However, it is a great outlet for people like Sonny Liston, etc., who otherwise would probably be violent criminals. However, Halleck's argument was, look, this training is so dangerous, we don't necessarily want to arm every criminal type with this knowledge. And
you know, it's funny you should say that because there are occasions where there have been guys who I'm training with, and I start to think it's a real ethical issue having this guy get better at jiu-jitsu. You know, because I fully there's not a single. There are a couple of guys who I used to train with where I think there's not a single day where I don't expect to pick up the newspaper and see this guy on the cover. And in the case of somebody like Cameron Earl, it happened. You know,
Cameron Earl, convicted rapist, a horrific sexual assailant, and jiu-jitsu. What was he? A brown belt and at
the end he was a black belt under Huff Gracie. So
and he had won some big high-level competitions as a brown belt, I believe.
Yeah, the Mundials. He'd done the Mundials a couple of times. So
so extremely scary dude, getting scarier every day he trained. And so
even though the exculpatory kind of facts that were floated by the Gracies post facto were that he or when they were thinking that there was a possibility that he was not guilty, said it wasn't him because this guy used a knife and Cameron wouldn't have ever really need to use a knife. So
that's specious.
That lasted until there was a DNA hit, and then they were like, okay.
Yeah, you shouldn't. Yeah, defending guys like that when you don't know for sure. Bad. But the two, I haven't even gotten to the two things I think were damaging to the sport from the segment. Number one, HBO did a study. They got the crime statistics, I assume from the FBI. I don't know where they got this figure, but they said, and I could be wrong in all these statistics. I watched it once last night. But they said the average American male in this age group is arrested for domestic violence at a rate of something like 330 per 100,000 men. You know, for every 100,000 men, you have 330 domestic violence arrests. NFL players are arrested 250 times for every 100,000 NFL players. So they're less violent than the general population, according to these statistics.
You mean more violent?
No.
Or no, less.
250 is less than 330.
I got yes, I got it.
Yes. So we can go. Maybe you didn't have maybe your Stanford math class.
I knew you weren't going to let that go. Right? A minor misunderstanding. But
Irregardless.
That
is just as good a word as inflammable, meaning flammable. So
okay, all right. I was dealing with tow trucks last night, so that's my excuse.
I hope it wasn't your Chevy. Anyway,
yes, it was.
I've told you about the Maya and the Dharma and the Karma. It's gonna get you, Eugene.
I almost all I had to do was make it to Friday. All I had to do.
Well, it's Wednesday. That's a long way to go, Eugene. So MMA fighters, guess what the domestic violence arrest rate per MMA fighter is, per 100,000 MMA fighters, which I don't even know how they, I mean, you know, you're extrapolating from much less than 100,000 MMA fighters. And I don't know.
500.
700.
Oh!
So twice the rate of the general population. Again, I haven't parsed their statistics. There could have been all kinds of faults in their assumptions and their analysis and what they categorize as an MMA fighter. I'm just saying HBO Real Sports, a perfectly credible mainstream news organization, said this.
Hold on a second. Let me recall for you a broken-jawed Michael Corleone who said, "Who says you can't kill a cop? You know, this is a dirty cop, a cop into drugs. You know, we have people at newspapers, they might like a story like that."
And the point is?
HBO boxing.
I see. Well, they talked about Floyd Mayweather and everything before this segment. So
okay.
I don't think that it was no kind of whitewash, because Floyd Mayweather got his screen time, believe me.
Okay, all right.
It's just the stats. Those are bad statistics. Twice the rate of the general population. Mm. Then Dana White refused to talk to him, which is a good thing. But then they showed a segment from a Fox Sports 1 interview with Dana White where he said, "If you put your hands on a woman, we're finished with you." And then there's a follow-up question. He says, "That's always been our policy," which we've covered this. Anybody who follows the UFC knows that was not a true statement on Dana White's part. All they had to do, immediately a big picture of Abel Trujillo flashes on the screen. Abel Trujillo, who's been busted not once but twice for domestic violence. Then they show Rumble Johnson and his 3 times being accused by 3 different women. None of those went to court. Well, one of those actually was a guilty plea, but the other 2 were just reports. Nevertheless, the UFC has clearly not got a zero-tolerance policy for domestic violence and never has. So why Dana White said that, I don't know. But getting caught,
he said it because he's used to dealing with guys like us.
Yeah, that are afraid of him and that won't follow up.
I'm not afraid of anybody. But
speak for yourself. But look, I'm at Stolid Vox. Have you been following the meltdown of Gawker? Somebody in the .com industry. I know you have.
Yes, I have.
Have you been noticed how much Gawker's been talking about Vox Media?
Yeah, I actually like that. I thought that was all right.
It's like, to me, it's like they're hearing footsteps and whatever, you know.
Yeah, of course. But, you know, those 2 guys that quit, those guys were stone cold dumbasses.
I absolutely agree. That was a terrible story. They were aiding and abetting blackmail by a apparently psychotic individual of a non-public figure.
Yep.
It was a bullshit story. Almost everybody was revolted, and they picked this story to quit on. But
well, no. See, now they're quitting on principle
because the story was pulled, and yeah. But to me, it's like, if you fuck up that bad, just own it and move on down the road. You know, there's principle and there's principle, but what principle leads you to aiding and abetting blackmail?
And I guarantee you, those guys were starting a rough game that they were not going to be able to finish. You ever hear of Timothy McDara? Okay,
no, I did not know.
Timothy McDara was a friend of mine from high school who was.
How am I supposed to know Timothy McDara if he's a friend of yours from high school?
Because he made headlines.
Okay, well, go on. Tell the story.
Okay, and he was a New York Post gossip columnist. You gotta know, you got a big fucking bullseye on your back when you're crushing people's lives on page 6 of the New York Post every freaking day, all right? Yeah. So Timothy McDara gets caught up in a fucking sting, sex with a 13-year-old girl sting, popped, goes to prison, you know? I mean, it's like Ghostface Killer said, you're mad reachable. You know, you think you're invisible, you're a public figure, you are mad reachable. Follow these guys from Gawker for half a day, and what would you find? You want to play that game? Dangerous fucking game, man.
Yeah, it's just like Elliot Spitzer going after Wall Street while he's patronizing high-end hookers. Dumb.
How reckless can you get?
It's like, not to quote, you know, I know you get tired of my 60s rock and roll references, but as Bob Dylan said, to live outside the law, you must be honest. If you're going to fuck with powerful people, that's why Lennon was a Puritan. You got to, you know, it's fine to be a scumbag, average, you know, cuckold or closet homosexual like you and I, but if you're going to be out there crusading, you need to clean up your shit. Or
you missed my Dead Kennedys, my Jello Biafra reference. How reckless can you get?
Exactly. And we all know what happened to Jello Biafra. Stomped by goons, sued by his own bandmates. You see?
Yeah, Biafra gave me a cock assist not too long ago, so that was a real cock, which is the opposite of a cock block for those who don't know.
I see a referral. Aren't
It's
you
like,
in a committed relationship, or do we even
no,
want to go there?
I didn't make good on the cock assist, but I recognized it for what it was.
I see. Well, that's thank you, Jello. We like
Yeah,
that.
I was completely shocked, and then I figured, how is he playing this for his advantage? And then I realized, oh, I got it, because he's the guy. He's the guy who knows the guy. So that's all right. Good for you, man. Well played.
I see. Well, before we got derailed on Jello Biafra, we were talking about Gawker Media, glass houses, throwing stones. The idea that
go ahead.
The idea that their defense is apparently anything that's true is publishable, which that doesn't lead anywhere good. And you were telling a story about Timothy McDara, a New York Post. So tie it all up.
Well, I mean, he was, you know, you could consider him a direct antecedent to Gawker type journalism, and you got to be clean. But this actually ties into the UFC and this HBO.
I see. Because his living was digging up dirt on other people, he then does something so vile that it's a federal crime.
I'll give you an example of a good business practice. When I worked at Intel under Andy Grove. And Andy Grove, you know, who wrote the book Only the Paranoid Survive, a business primer. Andy Grove was Hungarian, had been chased as a child out of Hungary by the Nazis, but initially had been a journalist in life, and then had one of his stories fucked with and realized in journalism, truth is relative. He never want to be caught up in that, decided to be an engineer where your feelings didn't make a difference. You know, you couldn't spin 2 + 2. It was always going to be 4, no matter what, unless you're under a fascist dictator, then things are fucked up. So Andy Grove took an interest in the publication that I did for him for whatever reason. So he and I worked together. It's not like a remote situation. It was probably one of the most inspirational bosses I ever had. And then he at a certain point was telling me, this is how much money Intel made last year. You know, and I'm just picking a figure out of there. Say $150 million, right? Intel made $150 million. You know how much Intel went ahead and spent on research and development? I go, well, no. How much? He was like $80 million. You know, now does that make any sense to you? Scale it any way you like. They were building wafer fabrication facilities in New Mexico, Arizona. I go, that's way over capacity based on what your business needs. And he goes, but it's good business. You know, you get a cardio kickboxing instructor, you know, who with the spirit of a Tiger Woods, you're going to go cheap on all this stuff. Machiavelli told you 600 years ago, would you rather have Stitch as a friend or Stitch as an enemy? You know, you need, the reason why MMA hasn't been able to get into New York is because, you know, Zuffa is not making friends. And you know how you make friends? You pay people. That's how you make friends. Because if you're paying people, it's called an investment in business. If you're paying people, man, they're pretty happy to be paid by you, you know?
Exactly. And I'm not going to lie, we do moderate our coverage of the UFC because of our relationships as a company with the UFC. We want credentials. We want access. We want advertising, have a certain amount of control of advertising. What? That's just business. No,
that's
seriously.
You. How come this stuff is not? How come this is not trickling down to me?
You're a wild card. You can say whatever you want because they're on videos and they don't get upset about videos. But what we tweet out, the headlines we put out, they fucking care about it. Mm-hmm. And when we're off, we change the shit and we try to be fair. We cover, Bloody Elbow covers more of the stuff that the UFC doesn't want. In fact, the story that got Stitch fired wasn't Bloody Elbow. We were the ones who followed up with it. Mm-hmm. MMA Fighting also did good work after he got fired. I'm not saying we're better than anybody else. I'm just saying it's reality. Business realities impact coverage. Gawker, I admire, and I'm glad they're out there because they have a much less of a give a fuck attitude. So I love Deadspin's coverage of the UFC and of other sports because they don't give a fuck. They cover people. They call it like they see it. They are antagonistic. They go after people in a way that we try to just cover the sport in an even-handed way. They go after the UFC, which I think it needs to be done. However, they also want to make money and get paid. Mm-hmm. So the two dudes who quit acting like all this, our great work can't be touched by the advertisers. That's so disgusting and immoral. It's like, get a fucking clue. You're in a capitalist system, dude. This is how it works. Like, get over yourself. You do not have any God-given right to out every anonymous asshole who's married and hires a gay prostitute. That's just bullshit. It's the same attitude. It's like these assholes that hacked Ashley Madison. Their complaints were, when you say you delete somebody's account, you don't actually delete somebody's account. And besides, all these people are scumbags and need to be exposed. It was like, look, make up your fucking minds. Are you mad at the company because they don't help people cover up their hypocrisy? Or are you mad at the company because their customers are a bunch of cheating hypocrites? It's like, and you don't even know. A lot of the people that use that site are fucking swingers and you know, like, there's all kinds of stories. There's a million stories in the big city. And just because somebody's name is on that roll doesn't tell you shit. Except that they
oh, I see. This whole 5 minutes has
make the allegations.
designed for Kid Nate to say it doesn't mean anything if you find it. You could find my name on there, for example.
Exactly.
Nathan Wilcox could be on there.
Could be right there. I mean, but plenty of people use this shit. It doesn't tell you fuck all. And so
I could have been using it to buy a couch.
Exactly.
Okay. Right.
Anyway.
All right.
Look.
You're right.
But the fundamental thing is people have a right to private lives. And if you know.
Somebody from the generation that believes Snowden was a good guy and Julian
There's a big
Assange.
difference between the fucking government spying on everybody's doing.
Snowden is a piece of shit.
Snowden is not a piece of shit. He's
a piece of shit because it's how business has been done forever. And suddenly,
he developed technology. They did not have the capacity to record every phone call, every personal communication ever before. This is the Stasi.
When did you get a cell phone for the first time?
In the 90s, but back in the day you couldn't record cell phone conversations.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure iPhone 10, they have no idea what's going to be an iPhone 10. They just don't know. It's called a product cycle, baby.
Well, all I'm saying is the value of Snowden is the government was doing shit that the government itself now says is illegal and they shouldn't have been doing. And Snowden blew the whistle on it.
I'm having questions about now the guy develops a conscience, you know. That's interesting.
You don't even know. I mean, look at LBJ. LBJ kissed ass to all these racist senators his entire fucking career, and then when
LBJ,
came, he pulled the trap door under him.
Funny you should mention LBJ. You think he was hanging out with Woody Harrelson's dad up by the rail car?
Not this shit again. I mean, come on.
Coming from somebody who was born and raised in Texas, it's just the attitude I would expect.
Look, LBJ had plenty of failings, like the Vietnam War, for one. Complete massive foreign policy disaster that did untold harm to millions of people in Southeast Asia. There's a great documentary about the Cambodia.
I don't know that Kennedy would have done any differently.
Kennedy was heading down the same road. In fact, LBJ's entire approach was, I don't want to fuck up. I don't know foreign policy. What was Kennedy going to do?
Yep.
And the advisors told him, well, he was going to do what we said. So LBJ bought their shit. But that's neither here nor there. The point I was trying to make was LBJ passed the civil rights laws, which were a huge step forward for America.
He set those niggers free.
It was step two.
That's a direct quote.
It was the most important thing from a president since Lincoln. As far as
you know what Lenny Bruce said?
Lenny Bruce said a lot of things
about LBJ. He said the first 3 years in office, he didn't say anything because he was at home practicing how to say Negro.
Well, LBJ, you can call him racist.
I know I'm not calling him that. I'm calling him a conspirator. But
I see. Well, yeah, but that's
he also had something in common with Milton Berle. And that he would show you his penis at the drop of a hat.
So did Andy Dick.
Yes.
And then the commonality all three of them had was they were outsized gentlemen of excessive endowment. So you won't be seeing me flashing my penis around. That's all I have to say.
Actually, Phil Anselmo is supposed to be a member of that club as well, but he's not a Texas State resident.
Does he do the Andy Dick trick of wrapping his dick around his wrist and asking people, "Have you seen my new watch?"
No, I don't know about that. I won't put up with that kind of behavior if I'm in the room.
Oh, well, bully for you. But anyway, the whole point I was trying to make about LBJ was his entire career he conspired. I mean, he kowtowed to these racist, evil Senate committee leaders, and when the day came, he turned on them, and he had planned that all along. So Snowden could have been planning that the whole time he was involved in the NSA, or he could have had a transformation when he realized what they were doing. I mean, what's your take on Chelsea Manning? Do you think Chelsea Manning's a scumbag too?
The cartels have heard of coincidence. They just don't believe in it.
We're not talking about conspiracy now. We're talking about whether or not somebody can go into an organization without partaking.
You're defending the swine Snowden.
I am. I think we all owe him a fucking debt of gratitude. Do you want the NSA to just keep taking all your shit? I mean, have you followed the story? Do you know the kind of shit they were keeping on perfectly innocent people? They were keeping people's sexual histories, sex photos. They were passing around the office.
I don't think Hoover ever did that. I don't think.
Well, Hoover did that, but he didn't have the capacity to do the shit. And do you want Hoover doing it? Is that the country you want to live in, where it's like, oh, great, get into national security. Look at everybody's dirty.
So, but what my point is that you're talking about a creation of a culture that believes everything should be. My hatred comes initially, if you must know, from file sharing and the ethos that everything all the time for everybody free, and
that's a technology, dude. That's a function of it being free to reproduce.
Yes, but it's the idea that somehow is just justifiable that if a guy is married.
Before technology, music was always free. You couldn't make money off of music until you had recorded music or sheet music. Before sheet music, musicians didn't, and you know what? There were more working musicians ever before recorded music. You know what really killed musicians? Fucking recorded music and radio.
Yeah.
That's not a joke. That's the truth. Yeah. And that's the same thing with vaudeville and entertainers. TV killed the entertainment business for like 70% of the people who made a living doing it.
Yeah, well, TV is another story.
TV, radio, broadcasting, recording. The musicians union were dead set against musical recording.
You know why? Because it kinked the hose, and with the hose kinked, it was very easy to control the flow of what we call content. But we've gotten a little bit far afield here.
Wide of the mark.
The issue for me is, as part of good general business practice, you got to spread the fucking cheese.
I'm fine with that, but what does that have to do with Snowden? Snowden didn't invent Napster. I mean,
you won't get off of the Snowden thing.
I think it's bullshit for you calling out Snowden. I mean, and you're also making a string of non sequiturs here, which is
I'm not. I need to go. I need to get my state college translator. The point I had to make is that Snowden was operating on this belief that the public has a right to know. The guys that quit.
And you don't think so? You think that
the guys at Gawker were operating from the similar ethos? The public has a right to know.
There's a difference. The public has a right to know if it impacts public life. If our taxpayer-funded spies are spying on ordinary citizens who are doing no wrong and have no reason to be investigated, and passing their personal correspondence and sex photos around, essentially creating a climate for blackmail at will, then that's what the Stasi used to do. I mean, that's how the Stasi would control.
And this just started.
No, this is going to go on forever, but we don't have to support it.
No, okay. But I'm concerned about this. I'm concerned about this prisoner of
to blackmail MLK. Was that?
No. I'm concerned about this prisoner of conscience, Snowden, that he and Julian Assange actually is part of. This just suddenly. I mean, they're making comparisons between him and Ellsberg. Daniel Ellsberg
is on board with that. Don't you think he has a right to say what he thinks these guys are?
Yeah, Ellsberg is on board with that because I think Ellsberg is looking at royalties from the Pentagon Papers.
What's that?
I'm just saying. Look. What is that great Nick Cave line where he's talking about the guy stamping on the rampant with a cloven hoof, and he goes, "Here's your man. I got proof," as he points you out. The great accuser. I'm just. It's timing is curious. It's just. That's all. I come from a point of view of healthy skepticism. A New York-based says who? Says you? Oh, okay. All right.
Well, I mean, the thing with WikiLeaks is the information they've put out has been vetted and distributed by all the top news media outlets in the world.
Yeah, okay, this idea that it's like shocked that there's gambling going on in Casablanca. I'm shocked that governments are spying on governments, and Jonathan Pollard is in jail for jaywalking. Come on.
I mean, what is your argument, that we should just not enforce any rules or mores against spies? It's just open season, spy on everybody all you want for no reason? I mean,
that's typically what's always happened. We spy on them, they spy on us.
Ebbs and flows. And
my father had actually been a Cold War spy. His job was bass player for Air Force intelligence. He formed a jazz trio and was traveling around Eastern Europe playing jazz shows because nobody expected that black guys from the American South would have any language skills. And my father spoke 6 languages. So, which is kind of curious that he and I don't speak to each other. But this is he was spying on the Germans, he was spying on Russians, spying on the Chinese and the Japanese.
Across enemy lines during an undeclared war is entirely different than spying on U.S. citizens for no reason other than the fact they're Muslim. At the same time that we voluntarily stopped spying on people who commit right-wing acts of terror. Remember?
No, I'm thinking. I thought you were going to get all cranky about Angela Merkel's phone lines being bugged by the U.S. government.
I'm not. I mean, I think that's fucking terrible diplomacy.
It's terrible diplomacy to be found out doing it.
Exactly.
But if you don't think they're spying on us, you're crazy.
Well, I mean, they're not doing it as well. But getting caught in that kind of thing is a fuck up. But I mean, that's business, and those are publicly elected leaders of countries. That to me is fair game. That's who you should be spying on.
So you're concerned about your Ashley Madison profile is where I'm getting.
That too. I'd like to have some fucking right to privacy. If I want to be a scumbag in my private life, that's my fucking business. You know?
Really? So you felt your private life being threatened?
No, not. I mean, fuck that. It's like the same thing with the Gawker thing.
Now who's the frothing
that is
lunatic?
Such bullshit. That is a completely specious argument, man. I mean, look at Mr. Divorce over there laughing it up. I mean,
Kid Nate is hot. He's hot now.
Because it's fucking irrelevant who's a customer of that. People have the right to have a private life.
Yes. No, I realize that argument was, if you got nothing to hide, why would you care?
Which is bullshit. And that's
I was making that.
I know, but our viewers are dumb young kids, and they don't know that shit. They It's true. I mean,
I'm our reader.
The stats tell pretty clearly our average reader is much younger and much less well educated than you, although our income levels are fairly high. But and education
now you're depressing me. They're younger and stupider, and they make more money than me.
Well, there you go.
I think we got to talk, you and me.
That's free.
Now it's a joke.
Yeah, but
now it's time for me to go turn the
point I'm trying to make is that the whole just because you got nothing to hide means, like you only have something to worry about with surveillance if you got nothing to hide. Well, here's the thing: everybody has something to hide.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just concerned about the messenger. I'm concerned about glory hogs, the messenger. I'm concerned about timing issues. I'm concerned about who benefits, Key Bono. I've got lots of questions.
Snowden or Ashley Madison, you keep jumping around, or Stitch Duran. I mean, like
all that. My question, I'm not saying with Stitch Duran. I think that this was part of the UFC's counterintuitive policy of trying to do good business by doing bad business. No way should Stitch it. I mean, you got to spread the cheese. By which I mean that there should be. I mean, what would have assuaged a Snowden? I mean, certainly there's a chain of command. Did he attempt redress? Did he say to anybody?
Why would you attempt redress? I mean, look who's in jail for the CIA torturing people, which I hope you're fucking opposed to torturing people, because it's bad fucking espionage practice for one thing.
We talked for a long time.
It's self-defeating to torture people.
Torture doesn't gain you anything.
No, I think it's bad espionage practice
Study after study has proven it doesn't.
It doesn't work. It gets you bad intelligence, and it corrupts you morally. Like that's you know. And
well, I'm not so concerned about moral corruption, but it's counterproductive.
It's counterproductive, and it doesn't work. The only person out of the CIA that went to jail was the whistleblower. That's fucked up. That's not.
Well, you know, I'm fully okay with starting to throw guys in jail, but I'm starting to do it at the beginning of the second Desert Storm, and and I'm starting at the top with George W. Bush and Dick Cheney and the whole neocon band of thieves.
Absolutely. And if you look at those assholes, they were all mixed up in Iran-Contra too and got a pass there.
I'd like to go back that far.
And some of those assholes go back to Watergate and get a pass.
Correct. And I would like to have heard Snowden speak up a lot sooner than he actually did.
Hey, I mean, the guy's got more balls than I do, and he did something to me that was a benefit to me as a citizen. And took enormous risks, ruined his life, lost a good job. Now he's on the fucking run in Russia.
Like, it seems to me like he's a celebrity who, I feel better about his.
No money is one of the worst things that can happen to you.
I feel better about his prospects in life than I feel about mine.
Well, I think you're crazy pants. But let's run through some fights before we talk about the entire card. All right, so we got 4 fights on UFC Fight Pass. These are happening on Saturday, earlier than the fights usually start.
When?
Usually 3:30 p.m. Central Time.
What is that Pacific Standard Time?
That's
the Renaissance?
That's like 1:30.
1:30.
I haven't checked that. That's just my estimate based on previous Fox cards.
All right. Where is this happening?
This is happening in Chicago, and ticket sales were low, low, low.
Okay.
All right, so we've got welterweight Zach Cummings and Dominique Steele.
Do not care.
I don't care either. Women's bantamweight Jessamine Duke and Elizabeth Phillips.
Care.
You care because of Duke?
Yes.
Because?
I don't know. I mean, they've been making noises about her. It seems like they're positioning her for stuff. And I like her.
All right, fair enough. All right, lightweight Ramsey. I don't care. Lightweight Ramsey Nijam and Andrew Holbrook.
Yep.
I care because Nijam, a little bit mixed bag, but interesting.
Yep.
All right. Lightweight Darren Cruikshank, the Detroit superstar, and James Krause.
Yep. Care.
Yep. I care because of Cruikshank. Krause is almost an automatic don't care for me, but I'm caring because of the Detroit superstar.
Yep. I'm going with I like watching Cruikshank.
All right, so now we get to the 4-fight Fox preliminary card. This is on Big Fox. You got 8 fights in a row on the big card. Interesting. Bantamweight Eddie Wineland versus Brian Caraway, Miesha Tate's boyfriend.
Yes, well, hold on. Who did I pick? I picked Duke, and who else? I got to write this stuff down.
That's the only pick you made. You cared about Nijam and you cared about Cruikshank, but you didn't make picks.
Yeah, you're right. I did pick Duke. Okay, so Caraway and who else?
Eddie Wineland.
Yeah.
And you got to pick Wineland.
Yeah, I'm picking Wineland. I'm not picking.
Mr. People hate Brian Caraway.
Yeah, I hate him too.
Yeah. When the knocks against you are being accused of elbowing women in the back of the head, that's just it's more. It's like there's nothing Brian. There's nothing I hate worse than a yes man. Isn't that right? You got it, boss. All right. That too. All right. Welterweights Kenny Robertson and Bloody Elbows on Ben Saunders.
Yes, of course.
Mad cares, and I definitely picking Ben. So
yeah, I am as well.
And conflict of interest report he posts on Bloody Elbow. We love him. So there you go.
That's just total disclosure. That's a compliment.
Yeah, total disclosure.
If he sucked, I wouldn't pick him.
No. He's. I honestly think he can win. Lightweight.
What is he weighing in that? What does he fight on?
170.
170.
So lightweights: Jim Miller and Danny Castillo.
Yep. Care.
Definitely a care. Tough call. I'm going to pick Jim Miller for sentiment, but.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Miller, but he somebody, one of the commenters put it best. He goes, the thing about Gixt is you can't trust him to win and you can't trust him to lose. So I'm going to pick Miller, but I don't feel confident in that pick at all.
I don't either, especially because Castillo's one of these guys who's explosive and super athletic, and Miller's somebody going by on craft and skill, and so that's always a dangerous combination. All right, light heavyweights. John Vellante and Tom Lawler moving up for middleweight.
Yep. Filthy.
Definitely care. Tom Lawler in the gorilla mask. Antics. Fun.
Well, I picked the last one. You pick.
Picking. I care about this fight because I'm familiar with both guys, but it's a shit show slop fest. I don't really care enough to make a pick. How about that?
That's cheesy. Okay.
We got 2 Gicks in the cage, Eugene.
Yeah, that's what makes it so. That's like, should I run through that door with the tiger or the bear? I'm gonna pick Tom.
I see. I would go through the door with the bear, by the way.
Yeah, because bears are omnivores.
Exactly, and sometimes bear can be disinterested. Although on my site about animal attacks, I do have instance of an Indian drunk guy getting into a cage with the tigers, and he was unmolested. He went around displaying and yelling at the tigers, and then he just sat on a rock, and they were like baffled and didn't know what to make of him. So,
well, tigers are felines, right? They don't fight; they attack.
Yeah,
yeah. So.
Yeah, and so if you act like a predator, they're not interested in fighting with you, as opposed to Maksud, the main character on my blog, who huddled in the fetal position until the tigers were like, is this food? This is food. So, yeah. Anyway, so now we get to the main card. Lightweights, Joe Lozon and Takanori Gomi, 2 legends of the game.
And I'm gonna have to go with Joe Lozon. I care, but I'm going to pick Lozon. Gomi has just been depressing. So
he has, but stylistically, Gomi's kryptonite to Lozon because he could just face punch him into oblivion.
Of course, you would say this.
But Lozon's kryptonite to Gomi because he could just suffocate him like paper on rock. So
okay,
but I got to pick Gomi. All right, now we get to lightweight. Huh?
We got some action.
I see. Lightweights: Edson Barboza and Paul Felder.
You know what? I'm hopping off the Barboza train.
But Paul Felder is tough as shit. He's a guy who's
Paul Felder was one of our don't cares to cares.
Yes. And he's moved right up the card. He's undefeated. He's got 2 straight UFC wins. One was a split decision over Jason Sago. Who cares? Second one was a KO back fist knockout of Danny Castillo. So that's what got our attention. And so yes, big care. And I'm picking Felder. You're picking Felder?
I'm picking Felder.
Yeah. All right. So now we get to women's bantamweights: Misha Tate and Jessica Ai.
Care. You know what? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
We care.
Care, but I would like to send a message by not caring.
Because you're sick of Misha Tate sexualizing her own performance.
Yeah, sending me bikini photos. I'm fucking sick of it. And you're gonna say she's not just sending them to you, Eugene. She's sending them to everybody. I go, what? Like that's better.
Hey, I'm all for people using what they got to get what they want. I mean, that's part of her package. It's just like a male fighter can capitalize on his sexuality. George St. Pierre.
I tell you. You know what band I always hated back in. If you want to go back to the '80s, I hated the Bus Boys.
The Bus Boys.
Remember the Bus Boys?
I remember the Bus Boys, but I'm going, who cares enough about the Bus Boys to hate the Bus Boys?
They were huge. They were Eddie Murphy's friends, Eddie Murphy's favorite band for a period of time. And I just hate that minstrel show shit,
You thought that they were acting like minstrels. That is...
Yeah, it's kind of hurtful. Some guy came up to me after we played a show, and he said, I felt like I was at a slave auction. And I was like, well, given how light-skinned you are, seems like you came out on the better side of whatever kind of slave auction there is. And he kind of stalked out outrage.
What's that supposed to mean? So, like the children of Thomas Jefferson are better off because they're half white, even though they were still in chains? I see. You
tell me. They've done psychological study after psychological study, and at Howard University, as far back as the '60s, they were still doing historical black college university. They were still doing paper bag parties.
Where they were measuring their skin tones against paper bags?
If you were darker than the paper bag, you didn't get in. I don't get into that party, right? So.
That's fucked up, and that's something I learned hanging out with black people in college. Like, I'd had black friends in high school, but was never really, like, living with them. I had some black friends in the dorm, and, like, that's where I first learned about this whole high yellow, red bone, midnight blue, black gummer stuff, and it's like, man, racism is fucked up.
It's fucked up, man. It's
black people just hating them, you know, each other. The British would just be laughing. Look at the divide and conquer. Like,
well, you know, well, let's go back to now. Things are heating up in Rwanda again. You know,
are they? God
yes,
damn
they
it.
are. Yeah, yeah. So, and it's like, or we don't even know what. Let's go to the Middle East. I always want to say to you, Palestinians and Israelis, realize the rest of the world can't tell you apart, right?
That's the whole thing. Like,
you guys are both Semites. You realize that, right?
Yeah, and I got into a big thing with the guy I co-wrote my book with because I was like, what does anti-Semitic even mean? Arabs, how can Arabs be anti-Semitic? They're Semites. Like, and because he was calling, who was that Lebanese reporter lady that was always on the front row at the press club?
Helen Thomas.
Helen Thomas, one of the great American reporters.
Until she flamed out.
Yeah, flamed out. But she's fucking Lebanese. I mean, how many times does Israel get to invade her country without her getting to say some shit that she, you know, like, I mean, like, I'm not going to judge somebody because they're mad at the Israelis after the Israelis have invaded their country and committed atrocities a couple times. Like, that's y'all's business, you know? Like, but that's either here or there.
You know what? I'm going to say this about Israel, you know, because Israel gets pegged sometimes justifiably, sometimes not, as being this kind of Middle Eastern whipping boy. You get rid of Israel, and the Middle East is still fucked up.
Oh, it's totally fucked up. That's not, you know, that doesn't mean Israel's above criticism.
It doesn't, but we just need to sort of put that in perspective, you know. There are like 5 civil wars happening right now in fucking Syria.
Oh, yeah. It's all fucked up. But the thing is, the Israelis, to me, are my people. They're a democracy. They're well educated. They're wealthy. I've got Israeli friends. You know, at one point I had Israeli. I fucking married a Jewish woman. I had Israeli relatives.
They've got secret pots of gold that they're hiding.
I mean, I wish I could have gotten into that. But my ex-wife was Jewish. Like, I know Israeli people. Mm-hmm. I love Israeli people. And, like, to me, it's like they're us. I'm harder on Americans than I am on anybody else because they're me. And
that's where you're wrong. In actual fact, if you were to say that to an Seriously, they would be thinking inside, "Fuck you."
Well, I think the same thing when I put
Yankee.
Fuck you too.
Yeah,
but
seriously, I was offended for about a day first time I was in Israel to discover that they're completely like, we don't give a fuck about America. We don't give a fuck about America, America's interest. I go, what about all the foreign aid? They're like, yeah. You can talk all you want about the foreign aid. You're not giving us real support. Fuck you, you know?
Yeah.
You know what life is here like? 9/11 every day. Now you know what it feels like.
That's boo fucking who. I mean, you know, like live in Gaza if you fucking hate it so much in Tel Aviv. That's what I have to say there. Like, you know, like, who would you rather be, in Gaza or in Tel Aviv? Answer the question.
Well, given my cab driver who lives with his wife and his girlfriend in the same apartment, and the guy's 72 and has like 3 or 4 girlfriends on the side besides, and still goes on sex tours, and he's 72, did I mention? I'd say probably Tel Aviv's an all right place for him, at least.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's all I'm saying. Like, you know, it is what it is. But, I mean, if I'm critical of Israel, it's just because I see them as a peer. And they ought to conduct themselves as a democracy does, because it's better to be a democracy than to be an apartheid state, which is what they're flirting with. And look at the history of South Africa. That's not the road you want to go down. And if you really want to fuck up, be Rhodesia. Like, you know, if you want to see yourself with your head on a stick and your daughter is being raped, be Rhodesia, by all means. That's a short fucking boat, you know? Am I wrong?
No.
I mean, was Cecil Rhodes good for his people? Was Adolf Hitler good for his people? Like, is that a successful leader? Hey, I took us from a wealthy cosmopolitan state to rubble and raping within a lovely
you know what
years.
what I did on Knuckle Up this week, I tried to make the case, or sort of in passing to make a point about something else, that you realize that Hitler wasn't an outlier. His success wasn't in that he convinced people of something that they didn't believe in already.
Just like Donald Trump, he represents a real point of view.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Right.
It's a real stupid point of view, though, and you don't have to go along with the crowd when it wants to run off a fucking cliff. You
I
know?
could have walked into Times Square in 1938 and said 90% of what Hitler said in Mein Kampf, and people would have been like, "What's next, buddy? The sun is hot,
Yeah.
water's wet."
I mean, it's like, but at the same time, if you were doing that in 1938 in New York, there was a slim, if you had a big enough rally, there was a slim chance Bugsy Siegel might have come to the rally and fucked your shit up too.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe. I mean, the German-American bunt was operating in New York City without, you know.
Oh, they were operating. They had some big rallies, but they had some massive rallies get completely disrupted by Jewish gangsters as well. And I'm all for it. I'm not usually a big fan of Bugsy Siegel and Meyer Lansky, but between Nazis and gangsters.
Speaking of which, Mo Green is dead.
Mo Green, the Godfather actor, yes. But anyway, we got to keep moving. So we care about Barboza Felder. We're both picking Felder. We care about Tate, and I'm picking Tate to win, but I is pretty tough, and it could be a close one.
I don't know, man. I'm gonna. Okay, I care. I care because my reasons for not caring are not sound, but I'm not gonna make a pick. Fuck that.
I see.
Fuck that. Attica.
George Jackson.
All right. That's right.
So now we get to the headliner. TJ Dillashaw, Hanan Barao. Dillashaw took the title from Barao. They were supposed to immediately rematch. Barao couldn't make his weight cut, passed out, had to pull out a fight. Dillashaw fought a complete nobody. What was it? I want to say Joe Sacco, but that's the cartoonist Juju Palestine, the graphic novel series. What is the guy's name? You remember the guy that fought Dillashaw on No Notice?
Yeah. Well, you look it up. You're sitting there for you.
I'm looking it up. Joe Soto, not Joe Sacco, but Joe Soto. And so they're finally. Then they were supposed to fight in April. Dillashaw broke a rib. Now they're fighting. We care, obviously.
We care.
Do you have a pick? That's not that hard. Come on, make a pick.
Really?
Yeah, it's not that hard. Dillashaw's easily going to win this.
Oh. Okay. All right. Just for the sake of action, I'm going to pick Barao.
I knew you were going to take the bait on that. I knew it.
That's what was it? What was it? That was a tagline for some movie. Humans are such easy prey. Yeah, you know, it's like, man, it was just too easy. It's, you know.
It's just
like what I found about Brazilian fighters is once you crawl inside the head, you know, you're there forever, man. You know.
If you look at some of the analysis like our own Conor Rubish has done on the way Dillashaw and Coach Bang Ledwig deconstructed Barao, like Barao's whole game is low kicks and counter punching, and then if those don't work, he goes to the spinning back kick, which is a low percentage move, although it worked on Eddie Wineland. Dillashaw fainted. First, he stayed out of range and didn't stay in a stance, so that took away the leg kick. Then he would pop in, assume a stance, and fire tight punches with good head movement, took away the counter punching. Barao was fucked. And I don't think that is so many adjustments in the game Barao has to make, and I don't know that he and his coaches, they've got a great game. I mean, I'm not dissing Barao or Nova now. I mean, this is one of the great fighters in MMA history, one of the great camps in MMA history. But sometimes when your shit's figured out, your shit is figured out, and it's hard to come up with new shit, you know?
Maybe.
I mean, you should know about having your shit figured out. People.
Some guy was like, I figured Eugene, you didn't watch the fucking fights at all. Yeah. It's like, okay, whatever makes you happy. What else do you want me to agree to? Yes, I'm a closet faggot. Yes, I don't. What? Okay, and what? See, this is what I keep wanting our public figures to do. I want one person, one truly free voice in America to stand up and say, so what? What
exactly.
So
like
what?
Either homosexuality is okay or it's not. You know, like
I tell you, when I interviewed Halle Berry, it was right after she had this car accident thing, and she was really bent out of shape about what people were saying and what they thought and how and trying to explain. And then finally, I kind of said, like, who gives a fuck? Car accident happen every day. And she was like, what? I said, who gives a fuck? It's a car accident. They happen every day. And she was kind of like, huh. Yeah, I guess I never thought about it that way.
Wow.
Eugene Robinson, defense attorney.
Who is this Action Bronson kid who's got the effrontery to call out Ghostface Killer? Like the fucking Wu-Tang Clan up here, kids.
Yeah.
Whatever bullshit you're doing these days down here.
I love that. I gave you a grace period, and then people said, "Oh, these guys are children." Children, nothing, man. You know, when they were talking about Harley stabbing those guys at the Cro-Mag show, I came to Harley's defense. I was like, first of all, he was jumped and he was defending himself. No way he runs in with a knife into a room full of fucking 20 enemies. He went there in peace and was attacked. And secondly, you know, it's all about, once again, here we come full circle on how we start with the UFC. It's all about the do-re-mi, you know. I started the band. I named the band. I wrote the songs. You're playing the songs I wrote. Some sort of tribute is in order. You gotta fucking pay. That's it, you know. I mean, the UFC wants to get in New York. You should know better than anybody. You gotta make friends. And what do friends do? They make money for their friends. It's that simple.
It's a transactional basis for friendship.
Hey, man. Hey, I always make money for my friends, you know, and the friends I have that don't pay it forward and at some point or another make money for me are not friends that I have for long, you know.
And that's the key to our relationship. You'll get your check on the 15th. I guarantee it. There you go.
The 15th, he tells me on the 22nd.
Indeed. I'm at the 15th of next month.
Oh yeah, I got that. So the fact that you have, so what I mean, it's a very simple. It's a push me, you know, a push pull, you know. Okay, a Stitch comes out, expresses a certain amount of discontent, and your response as a corporate leader is what? Fire him, send him on it. It's not like he came in and jerked off in the office.
No.
It's not like he beat his wife.
And it's also like firing him serves no purpose for you.
Yeah.
Like if they had come out and made good with Stitch or even didn't do anything, how do they look better than before? Yeah. People are like, hey, you know, the UFC respects Stitch just like I do. They let him say his piece, whatever. They didn't even have to pay him more. They just had to leave him alone and let him say his piece.
Yep.
But by firing him, people are going, why are you fucking with Stitch?
Yep.
Like, first you cut his money in half, then you fire him for speaking up about it? What the fuck? What is a man supposed to do when you take food out of his mouth? Just shut up and take it?
Yep.
I mean, when a cop says put your cigarette out and get out of the car for no reason, you're supposed to do that? Like, fuck that.
Yeah. So you have to understand certain amount of dissent. You know, I mean, that's the key to why America is successful. You know, free speech. You can say whatever the fuck you want. Yeah. We really don't care. You know?
No, you can. If a cop has irritated you with his bullshit traffic stop, you can say, "Yes, officer, I'm irritated. I don't think this is a fair stop, and I'll see you in court, and we'll hear all about it."
No, what you should always do is they have to, if requested, provide you with a business card. And I always ask if I get. I'm sorry. Could I have your business card, please? Yeah. They have to produce it, and they have to offer it, and they have to give it to you. And at that point, sometimes I've gotten, why do you need that? And then I say, do I have to give you a reason for why I need your business card?
Yeah, but of course that's where Dave Pee Wee Herman got in trouble, sort of knowing that, but jumping out of the car and thinking that they had to give him their badges, which they don't have to do.
No, I typically stay seated in the car and very nicely ask the way I just asked, you know. Yeah. I mean, and if they don't want to do that, then I say, what is the name of your watch commander?
Yep, and those are both good things. And the key thing with the police, and I'm not blaming the victim here, I'm just saying for my survival, and of course I've got white privilege out the wazoo. Thank you very much.
Dave Pee Wee Herman's white.
Well, Dave Pee Wee Herman's a dumbass.
Dave Pee Wee Herman's a Jew. I thought that's where you were going to go with that.
Yeah, I don't think that's correct. But I always try to be deferential to the police, but also let them know I've got a certain social standard and I'm aware of my rights. And did you notice the big sticker that says District Attorneys Association on the back of my car? I don't say that, but, you know, they're there. But
no, I'm giving as much respect to cops as I give to the guy in the grocery store or the woman who takes my cleaning.
Okay, I'm not trying to make his day harder.
Right. I adhere to the Frank Sinatra dictum of keep the party polite. Always.
Always. Even if you're saying utterly shitty things to people.
Correct.
Say it polite.
Correct. If I got, I don't know for a fact that your mother is a dirty whore. I don't know how often she showers, but from what I've heard, it stands to reason that she might have accepted money for sexual contact. That's all I'm saying. I can't think of a more polite way to say something like that.
Well said, Mr. Robinson.
But I was polite, I didn't use any
No.
Anglo-Saxonisms. I kept the language clean. I could have said that in church.
Exactly. Maybe even with more fire and brimstone in church.
That's true. So yeah, so go. I mean, the UFC, you gotta. This way that you're going is not gonna bear the fruit that you need it to bear. Sorry, you're gonna have to pay people. And the thing is, Andy Grove would spend $80 million on wafer fabrication facilities because he's looking at upscaling in the future. In other words, he's looking at the future. Yeah.
And the thing is, we're trying to create an environment where nobody can speak out against you.
No, it's not going to work.
You just put more and more tension on this situation, especially when you don't have complete permanent control over what are, in fact, independent contractors and media outlets. At a certain point, people have their breaking point. Like Jose Aldo is very close. There's rumors that he's talking about filing lawsuits against the UFC, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just like, how are you helping yourself by creating an open war with your own champion?
And I'm also concerned about the whole John Jones thing as well, for not incredibly obvious reasons. They are floating this talk about this super fight with John Jones and Chris Weidman, and I have to tell you that shit, based on the rumors I'm getting, is super premature. Super premature. The rumors I'm getting out of New Mexico are not encouraging. This is not a man who's taken the jurisprudential process seriously at all. At all at this point.
It's still not changing his ways.
That's my understanding.
Well, there you go.
Hearsay, possibly hearsay, but fairly well placed hearsay.
There you go. I personally, I don't have any inside sources or know any rumors, so there.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done. You can't. It's like, you remember that Saturday Night Live skit where it was supposed to be a jeans commercial, like bad idea jeans, and it's like, oh, he's got a problem with crack, but I guess it's okay if he stays in the apartment while we're on vacation. Bad idea jeans. I mean, this is. What are you going to do, man? What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
I don't know. But after this HBO sports thing, real sports thing, they're going to have to continue.
Oh, so you said they had two terrible things, and I interrupted you.
There were two things. One was the statistics on how often MMA.
That was one. And what was the second one?
And the second was Dana White being busted lying about what the UFC's domestic violence policy is. Just straight up, here's what Dana White said, and here's the facts. Dana White said this. The facts are that. Like,
from a guy who has never hit a woman in anger in his entire life. Well, that actually is not true. I was at a show once and had a woman try to hit me in the head with a half-empty beer bottle, and I hit her.
Wow.
But that was in a public venue. That had nothing to do with personal.
And in self-defense.
Yeah. So, a guy who's never hit a woman in anger before, I don't understand it. I don't understand how difficult. What is that great line from Sir Mix-a-Lot? If you don't have the game, let her leave your world.
Well, my wife prosecuted domestic violence for a long time, and there's patterns, and there's a deep-seated insecurity that goes into this behavior, and a lot of fear. And when you have a dangerous guy who's afraid, he becomes very dangerous. Some of these guys want to completely control their woman, cut them off from contact with their friends. I mean, it's just a nasty cycle and a very predictable one.
Yeah.
I'm not without sin. I'm not going to cast stones, but
what?
I'm not. I mean, I'm saying, let me finish
Okay.
my
All
point.
right. Yeah, let's just.
I'm saying, don't fucking hit women, scumbag. It's
Yeah.
a bad look. And there was one last point I want to make. I posted a video from 1967 of Hunter S. Thompson being on a TV show, getting ambushed by a Hell's Angel. The TV producers planned this. Let the angel come out while Hunter S. Thompson's doing an interview on a chair. Let the angel come out, ride his motorcycle around Hunter S. Thompson and the interviewer, as the studio crowd applauded wildly. Then they had this discussion about, the circumstances under which the angel stomped Thompson and their disputes with him over royalties from his book. And the point the angel was trying to make was, look, the reason you got beat up was because an angel was beating his old lady like a rug, and you got in the middle of it. And like at one point he goes, look, you got to beat your woman to keep him in line. And the whole crowd, men and women alike, just laugh and applaud and go crazy. And it's just like, watching this in 2015, it's just like, oh my fucking God, like.
You know why? You know why people do that? Because
partly fear, partly nervousness, and partly because that's what fucking truth was. That's
also no. I mean, people do it, and they are allowed to continue to do it because of the death of Sonny Corleone. How about that? Let's call it that.
Sonny Corleone wasn't even dead in 1967, unless you're talking.
No. I mean, my point being, do you honestly think that my youngest sister's husband, even in his wildest dream, imagines if he's having a dispute with my sister, his wife, that it would be a good idea for him to slap her in the face?
Yes, that's the old blood feud way of solving domestic violence. Like, but what if a woman doesn't have a big brother, or what if her dad died? Is she suddenly entitled to be beaten?
No. I mean, in other words, the audience cheering and people thinking somewhat it's okay and it's passable and it's kind of, from Sean Connery to Gerard Depardieu,
to John Wayne. I mean, have you seen The Quiet Man lately? That shit's fucking disturbing. Another movie I'm talking about?
What was the name you first said? I didn't hear you.
John Wayne.
John, yeah, you're right.
Another movie, the John Ford movie, The Quiet Man.
With the redheaded woman. What's her name?
Maureen O'Hara.
Yeah, Maureen O'Hara. Right.
The epic of the movie is a good husband slaps his woman around and forces her into sex. Like,
right.
So
in other words, like it's, for me, the issue of college rape. A friend of mine was almost raped by this guy, and we found him and almost beat him to within an inch of his life. Now, I'm not saying that there's an equivalency here, that's a good way, that's justice. I'm not saying that makes sense. Like, had she actually been raped by the guy, this would have done nothing to alleviate her pain, suffering, and it's much less effective in total than a legal solution, than something that's taken seriously. However, cops might start taking this shit seriously if on top of every single one, there was a hospitalization, because right now they don't take it seriously. If my daughter comes up to me and says, oh, my boyfriend beat me and raped me, I'm cutting his fucking legs off. I cut his legs off. Oh, now it's an issue. Now it's an issue what about the first crime that was causally connected to this fucking crime? Oh, that wasn't a crime because it's a civil issue. It's like I gave my car keys to somebody and they took it, and then it's a he said, she said deal.
Well, the reality of it is, in the case of fathers defending their daughters in these situations, juries are really loath to prosecute. Like, I mean, like, you can commit cold-blooded murder, and if you've got a strong case that, I did totally ice the guy. I got the drop on him. I took him out back in a parking lot. I told him to say his prayers, and I shot him in the back of the head 3 times because he raped my daughter. And the jury says, oh, that sounds like manslaughter to me. But, and
that's
so,
a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
I'm not
as a
upset
father
about
of
that
daughters.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. And I'm even like, are you sure he needs jail time for this? But
right.
But
well, I would say Ellie Nessler. Look up Ellie Nessler.
Ellie Nessler. Is this the guy who shot the karate instructor that was raping his kid?
Yeah, it was a woman. Yeah, she shot the guy who had molested her son. Shot him in court. And had she not been so shocked by the sudden blush and blur of celebrity, which caused her to have more money than she had before, and it caused her to spend that money on crystal meth, and then she got stranger and stranger and actually had to go to jail subsequent to that, she would have been, I mean, they set her free. So
Yeah, I remember her, and I remember there's also the guy who shot the karate instructor who allegedly raped his son, like,
Yeah.
and it's on video and it's a YouTube classic. So, but we're not endorsing vigilantism. That is not necessarily a solution. But
No, no, but this is a and also what I'm saying, and I think it should be clear, I'm not saying that the UFC could have spent their way out of this, but I'm saying that the UFC has to understand that you got to I mean, they could have done this special on any sport, really, but they did it on the UFC, and that's because the UFC has not spread the cheese. And I'm sure Dana would go, bullshit, you're a fucking idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. And I'm saying, all I have to do is read the newspapers, man.
yeah, you're like mixing and matching the Stitch Duran and the HBO thing, which aren't necessarily connected. But
I think they are connected.
I think they speak to a bad press strategy.
Yep.
They're pieces of a bad strategy. And I think Zach Arnold, of Fight Opinion, said it best. He said, the UFC wants to be treated with the deference and respect due a major sports organization, and they want to be reported on like they're a lovable little mom and pop shop.
Yeah, right.
Like, so, I mean, it could be worse, Dana White. You could be Sepp Blatter at FIFA and having people showering you with dollar bills at press conferences. Like, I mean,
I thought he played that very badly, man. I would have been like, hot dog, give me the cash,
Yeah. Well, that's
he's acting like he's gonna kick the guy's ass. It's like, man, you're 83 years old. Sit down.
Indeed. Indeed.
And the guy who threw the money, you got to realize when you're being hustled off of a stage, out of a venue, or anything, what you got to do is you got to bust loose with somebody. Put that clip up of, oh, I see your judo is very good. Now you're grabbing my penis. Why are you grabbing my penis? And then you got to scream my favorite line of all, take your hands off me. That's great. Anytime you see somebody, it's getting worse from there on out.
I see. How about don't tase me, bro?
That's a good one. Don't tase me, bro.
I was working for John Kerry when that incident happened. That was a dark day in Kerryland, I gotta say.
Man. Or what? Do you know who I am? That's another good one. Get that in there.
Google me, bro. That's the UFC variation.
That's another good one. All of these are good, because you know what they do? They stop the flow for just a frame of a second, Like at time I was getting beaten up by bouncers and they were throwing me down these marble stairs, and I go, "There's my mother." And they turn around and look, and sure enough, there was my mother. They're like, oh, and they let me go.
Yeah, reasonable response. But we've gone over time. We barely talked about the UFC at all. But hey, that's what you come for.
We talked about nothing but the UFC.
And Snowden and all kinds of
Yeah. Well, these were all, in my mind, it's an Uber theory.
I see. It's all connected. It's all connected. And so we've got, cuckolds and closet homosexuals.
We're gonna get the t-shirts, baby. Gizmo Nala didn't realize what a thing he started.
All right, so
the cuckold closet faggot show. Hit a little gleam off the tooth.
I see. It's like, but see, some people don't want to say the F word because it's hate speech, et cetera, but you're being called that, so you're owning it. It's complicated. We're trying to sell advertising here, Eugene. You're fucking up the program.
Yeah, I'm not Gavin McInnes. Oh.
Yeah.
The guy who started Vice and got fired because he got too into the agitprop.
It happens.
Which was going to KKK rallies and trolling the guys at KKK rallies. Yeah, which is like, okay.
Did you see the guy, I think in Alabama, who was walking alongside the Klan rally playing
the tuba
phone?
Yeah, I like
and he was playing the march, the elephant march, and then he switches into Ride of the Valkyries. That's how you fight Nazis. That's
that was good. But that's I think it was your comment about this misdirection equivalency thing.
Oh yeah, the New York Times running a headline that said the Klan and the Black Panthers, have competing rallies. The Klan and the Black Panthers are two completely different fucking things. But that's a subject for another episode.
Hey, I gotta walk to work today because my car is back in the shop. So
that's what happens when you drive a Chevy Chevelle.
I'm a Ford guy too, man. I used to drive a Ford Econoline. So
you're bi?
I'm a closet bi. with the so yeah, I was jamming a Kano for a period of time, but so I got to get to walking.
All right, so give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at Eugene S. Robinson, at KidNate. Read me at BloodyElbow.com. Read Eugene at Aussie.com. Sometimes buys his Fightland. Read Eugene's book, Fight. And subscribe to MMA Nation on iTunes. Connor fucked up. He's not fired from the shows, but he's been fired from posting the shows on iTunes. We're getting caught up. We posted two knuckle ups and then I don't care yesterday. We're going to post this show today, I promise. So it'll be on iTunes. Of course, if you're hearing this and you're on iTunes, then you already got it. Anyway, never mind. Adios, MMA aficionados. Thanks, Eugene.
All right, man.